God, going into 7 minutes of stoppage time. It's where Liverpool's been scoring all their goals this season. I don't have any confidence. What's this? Huh. With love, thank you for not stealing Gay Heat back, Crystal Palace. What do they send me? Yes. With this, we might just have a chance. What's up, guys, and welcome to the Blues and Stripes. Yes! God, we needed that. I needed that. Because, man, I was just not looking forward to the international break if we did not get anything out of this match. Especially after the results today. I mean, all three of the teams that I didn't want to win all won today. So I'm just sitting here thinking, this is going to make 4. If we don't get a win out of this, it's just going to be 4. Because, I mean, a draw would have been not bad, considering where we are currently, how many players we have out injured, and how we've been playing, honestly. I really was not expecting even a draw. But the way we were playing today, and the way Liverpool were playing today, it felt like we just had to win. Giving up a win here and taking a point from what should have been 3 points after our performance, it would have just been really disappointing. And then we turn up with that last-minute goal. Phenomenal. It's a great feeling. It's the best I felt about this team since the Club World Cup. Am I convinced that this is going to be the turning point for us? Not necessarily, because this happened right before the international break, so there's a chance we come back and we lose that good feeling that this game gave us. But it gives me a little bit of hope. If we can build off of this, we have a chance to put ourselves back in a good position. I'm just not confident that that's going to happen, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about the one thing that I thought was going to screw us over today that thankfully did not, and that was Anthony Taylor and Craig Pawson, the referee. Could you believe that? We had both of them. The guy who screwed us over more than any other referee at center, and Craig Pawson, one of the worst referees in the Premier League, who gives the stupidest decisions. And we didn't get any insane calls to screw us over today. I was shocked, because looking at the Garnacho one, it's soft. Granted, it's about as much contact that Chalobah's red card was, so take from that what you will. But I was convinced with the Isak one. I was convinced they were going to ignore the tug on James that led to the hand in the face. And they were going to look at it and be like, you know what? He can't hit him in the face like that, so that's going to be a penalty. I was so concerned about that. But thankfully, they didn't do that. Even with Cucurella on the assist for Estevao, I'm sitting there thinking, God, it's going to be his hair is offside or something like that. But they didn't. So thank goodness for that. It was pretty one-sided as far as the 50-50 challenges. There was a lot of little contact that was going Liverpool's way for most of the match. But it's those big decisions I feel like Anthony Taylor just loves to drive the stake into our hearts. So glad he didn't do that today. But now let's talk about Maresca. First of all, the fact that we once again did not end a game with a red card because of him is kind of funny. As far as his decisions today, his lineup was close to what I was expecting. I expected Fernandez to be at the 10. I thought it would be Lavia instead of James in the midfield and James at right back. And I did think that it was going to be Estevao and Neto on the wings and not Garnacho. But it's a fairly straightforward lineup. I don't think James in the midfield works normally. I think in the first half it was fine because Liverpool today, their high press was a little slower than we're used to seeing from them. So I think we had time to play in the midfield, which suits James. So if that high press is there, he's going to make some mistakes. We saw that early on in the second half when Liverpool did step their press up a little bit before he moved into defense. We saw a couple of moments where he was giving up the ball a little cheaply. So that's what a high press can do to him when he's in the midfield. But thankfully, first half, we didn't see him have to deal with that a whole lot, so that was good. And then the subs, unfortunately, is where I look at Maresca and go, I don't feel like he knows what he's doing. Because the first two are forced upon him because Badiashile and Achimpong both are injured, which is crazy to me that we now have no center backs that are fit. We have a whole week. I know Fofana's was concussion, so he should be back by the end of that. I don't know about the rest of them, though, but it's just insane to me that we didn't go get another center back after Colwill's injury. It's so stupid. But those first two subs, pretty much the only subs he could make. I did like the Lavia coming in and James going back at center back. Thought that was fine. And then Hato coming in for Achimpong. Really no other choice he had there. But the three final subs are where I look at him and I go, you don't know what you're doing. Because they're all like for like. And I've talked about this before. He doesn't have any ideas when it comes to substitutions. Now, obviously, Estevao was the one substitution that worked, but that's because he's a good player. And that's where I look at Maresca's subs and I go, unless he's bringing on somebody that is effective, the subs aren't going to help us. Because most of the time, they're not going to change how we're playing tactically. They're not going to change the formation at all. It's just going to be like for like whenever we're chasing a game. And that was perfectly exemplified here. Gittins coming on for Garnacho doesn't really affect much. Estevao coming on for Neto doesn't really affect much. Guiu coming on for Pedro, what is that going to do? You're taking one striker off and putting another one on who's less effective than Pedro. No offense to Guiu, he's got potential to be a decent striker, but he's not even close to their level yet. What would help, because we're chasing for a goal, what would help is taking maybe Fernandez off. dropping Pedro back into a 10, and then Guiu up top. That might have been effective, but just Guiu on for Pedro, that's not effective. That doesn't help us. Now, I think his tactics today were a lot more what we need, that willingness to get down the field, that willingness to not always go backwards with it. And we still had periods of the match where we did that, and especially in the second half whenever Liverpool stepped up the press, it got a little scary there. But for the most part, especially in the first half, we looked to try to be more direct. We looked to try to get down the field quickly. That's more the style that I want to see whenever we're talking about possession, not just knocking it around the back, trying to bump up our possession numbers, actually using that possession effectively and getting it down the field. But yeah, as far as his subs are so uninspired these days. I never expect to see much in the second half unless there's a good player on the bench like a Palmer or an Estevao, if Pedro's on the bench. If any of those guys are coming on, then I'm like, all right, well, let's see what they can do. But I'm not expecting him to make a change that's going to help us. And obviously people have already talked about his red card substitutions and how much they hurt us in those matches. So it just feels like he doesn't really have those ideas anymore of how to change the match and adapt and prepare us for a second half that is going to be different. So that is why I'm not fully convinced that this is our turnaround point, because there's still parts of this game that make me go, Maresca's still not learning. But at the very least, there's a better feeling about the club. There's a better feeling about the players at the moment, I think. And so let's talk about those players. First of all, Sanchez didn't really have a whole lot to do, to be perfectly honest. They were not testing him much today. I will say on the ball, once again, a little scary, but that's to be expected. So let's, again, stop passing back to him as much as we do. But into defense, we'll start from the best. Cucurella, once again, very solid performance. Got on the assist sheet as well. He's just so good on that left side. Kept the should-have-been Ballon d'Or winner completely quiet. For Badiashile, not terrible. Probably one of his better performances today. I still think on the ball, he's way too slow. Takes way too many touches, and it allows players to be able to close him down. And that's where I look at the first half. Liverpool's press was so much slower than we're used to seeing, and yet there were still moments whenever they were able to pick it off of us because the player on the ball was moving so slow with it. And Badiashile was that player, I'd say probably 50% of the time. So it doesn't help us whenever he walks with it, whenever he's standing on it, because ultimately he's waiting for somebody to move. But the problem is if he's standing on it, he's not going to be ready to make that pass when it does open up. If he's on his toes, if he's moving quickly or just moving the ball around, knock it out wide and get it back. Just keep it moving so they have to shift and adjust. Don't just stand on it because they don't have to adjust to anything. They just have to make sure they're marking all the guys that are trying to move into open space. So I'm just sick of seeing that from him. But defensively, he was okay today, made some good defensive blocks and challenges. So at the very least, he's looking a bit better there because last season he was very, very shaky on that front. Achimpong, I thought, had a good first half. Second half started to show his youth and inexperience a little bit. Couple of shaky touches, shaky passes, but that's where we need him to get more time so he can learn from those mistakes. He can get better because this is his third appearance this season. So once again, I blame that one on Maresca for some reason not trusting him more, even though he says, no, I fully trust him. Yeah, okay. We see what you're doing. Actions speak louder than words, Maresca. And then Gusto on the right side, the only player for me today that I just absolutely despised. Because everybody else, they had a couple of good moments, did some good stuff. Gusto? First of all, he's the reason that Liverpool found an equalizer to begin with. Once again, the same old issue with him that he never learns from. Player from behind? Oh, I see him. Are you ready to do anything if he makes a run? No, because Gakpo cuts inside of him way too easily. And nice little flick on from Isak, and Gakpo's there. And he's scoring, and Gusto's behind him because he's not ready for it. Because he's not actually tracking him. He's not actually doing anything about the guy making a run in from behind him. He turns off, ball watching, boom, goal. It happens way too often, specifically through him. And if that were the only time in this match where somebody beat him from in behind, I'd be like, all right, well, at least he didn't let it happen again. He lets it happen 2 or 3 more times after that. Just it doesn't lead to a goal, thankfully. There was one moment where a cross comes into the back post, and Caicedo is over there trying to win a header in a 1v2 situation. Where is Gusto? He's all the way in the middle. Why are you there? Get out and do your job. So I'm sick of seeing him defensively. He is absolutely a liability for us. And I realize we don't have a whole lot of options, but we should be moving him on because he's not getting better. He keeps making the same mistakes. Again, we saw him give up 2 goals like that against, was it Flamengo in the Club World Cup, I think? In the group stage, he gave up 2 goals because guy coming in from behind him, he's completely unaware and loses out, and that player gets a header that ends up assisting a goal. If he's going to keep making that mistake, then don't play him. Or somebody go fix it. Do something about it. But the fact that he just keeps playing and we keep seeing the same mistake over and over again, it's really pissing me off because it's one thing to say, all right, youth and inexperience means we're going to see mistakes. It's another thing to say you keep making the same mistake over and over again. When that's a problem, then you're not learning. And that's, again, why I don't think Maresca is really doing much as a coach, because he keeps making the same mistakes over and over again and doesn't learn from them. And it just bleeds down to where somebody like Gusto continues to get time, keeps letting the other team score because he's not doing his job. He's not tracking runners from in behind. It's too easy. But that's the only player I'm going to complain about today. On to Fernandez. I thought had a pretty solid match. He had some good moments. He had some bad moments. But on the whole of it, I think he had more good moments than bad. He did have the great little pass in behind for Cucurella's assist for the winner. But there were a couple of moments I was getting frustrated with him in the second half because we are searching for that winner and his pass is just not good enough. A couple times he tried to slip Gittins in behind and overhit it or put it right at the defender. There's one in particular where he could have slipped Estevao in behind and he puts it right toward the keeper instead of trying to slide it a little bit further wide for him. So like I said, some frustrating moments, but on the whole of it, I was happy with his performance. James, I thought, looked pretty good throughout. Like I said, second half when Liverpool stepped up their press, there were a couple of moments when, I'm not going to say he's too slow to play in the midfield, but he is one of those players that he does look like he's playing slow because he's very composed on the ball. But when players put pressure on him, there are some moments whenever you can tell he's not quite ready for it. One of the touches Acheampong had early on in the second half that I thought looked, again, like the inexperience I was talking about. It was a little under hit, but it still did feel like James, if he's more aware, he could still get there before the Liverpool player. I don't remember who stepped in and won it, but he's not quite ready for it. He's a little bit on his heels, so that little under hit pass, now all of a sudden he can't get there in time and Liverpool have a chance to break on us. So it's those moments like that that I think is why he's not very effective in the midfield. I thought when he moved into defense, looked a little bit better, looked a little bit more comfortable. So I know he's not typically a center back, but he's somebody that I think could be useful for us in there. And then Caicedo, what a player. What a damn player. He was showing Liverpool today, this is what £100 million can get you. This is a £100 million player. Because, my God, just absolutely dominated that midfield. And what a strike for the first goal. My Lord. He's quickly becoming my favorite player of the decade. Again, I personally think if we were going to have a player in the top 10 for the Ballon d'Or, it should have been him. He was the one last season that was just so good throughout. Like, yes, Palmer had some good moments. He had some great highlight reels, I would say. But Caicedo is such a phenomenal player, and he's showing it week in, week out. I really want to go back because I'm sure I made some videos when he first came in talking about what a waste of money, and he's completely proven me, and I think everybody who thought that about him, completely wrong. Wonderful to watch. But as far as our attacking players, first of all, Neto, I think, had a pretty mellow game. He had a couple of moments where he did well on the ball. There were some times, though, when the cross comes in and it's toward the back post. And I feel like Neto should be reading that and getting there, kind of what Estevao did for the winner. And it just felt like he was never quite there. He's coming in a little too late or he's a little too wide. But he's once again proved how hard of a worker he is and how much that is effective for us. So on the whole of it, not a terrible match, just not quite up to the stellar standard that I think we've seen from him before. Garnacho, probably the most decent performance I've seen from him in a Chelsea jersey. I still think there's a lot that he's lacking in his game, but he did have a couple more moments in this match where he was more effective going forward. He was more dangerous going forward, but I still don't see 54 million. That does not make any sense to me. And then Pedro up top, I think, was a nuisance throughout. Again, I don't think he's as effective as a striker if he doesn't have somebody at the 10 who likes to make runs in behind him. And Fernandez doesn't really do that. So that's why having an Estevao or having a Palmer in there would be more effective for him, or having him play at the 10 and then having a striker like you up top. I think that could also help. But when he's up there kind of by himself, most of the time he's either just battling the defenders and he's not quite winning most of the battles because he is strong, but he's not. You think of somebody like Delap. Delap is going to cause a lot of problems. He doesn't quite have that type of strength. And then whenever he drops in like he likes to do, I don't think he's as effective there because we don't have anybody getting into the space that he's opening up. So it wasn't really a game for him, but I still think he did enough to help us out up there. As far as the subs that came on, first, Lavia had a couple of good moments in the midfield, some good interplay. He had several of those moments that do make me want to get excited for having him in the midfield, but I don't let myself get too excited because we know there's a chance he could be injured after the international break for just some random reason. So that's his biggest problem, and we'll see if that affects him again. But then the second sub was Hato, and he, for me, was probably the best sub outside of Estevao that came on, because he had some really good defensive moments and a couple of good moments on the ball as well, where we had some of our defenders throughout the match giving up possession a little too easily. He was very strong, very comfortable. There was one moment where there was 2 or 3 Liverpool players all surrounding him trying to win it, and he does well to hold on to it. Good strength, manages to get through him, and then flick it ahead to, I think it was Lavia, who then sets up a chance for us. So overall, a very impressive performance considering he's not really a center back, but I thought he did well. And then the final 3 subs, Gittins was okay, better than what we've seen so far from him this season. He actually had a decent attempt that the keeper made a good save for, so it was a step up from where he has been, but he has been at the bottom of the barrel, so the step up doesn't really mean much, to be perfectly honest. Guiu, I think, worked hard, but he just doesn't have that quality that we need from him yet. I think he can get there, because I think he's got the work rate and the desire to improve and get better, which means we could see him turn into a top quality striker. But right now, I don't think he's at that level. And that's why, again, I think it's better if he's playing with a 10 in behind him, like Pedro. Somebody who can play off of him and make him look better with his work rate and how hard he works to put pressure on the defense. It'll cause issues that can then be pounced upon by somebody who's better suited to playing a 10. Enzo is not a 10, but I still will give credit. I think you did work hard, and I like the fact that he is pushing himself, and the fact that we actually did give him a chance to play, because for some reason Maresca just has not been wanting to recently. Don't know why. But now let's talk about Estevao, because this kid's going to be a phenomenal player. He's already really good, and he's only 18, and you can just see he has such a desire to play, to get on the ball, to make things happen, to get in and make those runs, to be on the end of crosses. He doesn't seem intimidated by situations. I mean, he's just so good, and he needs to play more. Maresca needs to play him more. We got to the 70th minute, I'm thinking he's got to get subbed on soon, right? And what's funny is I must have looked away because they only showed Gittins and Guiu coming on, and I was about to throw something if he didn't sub Estevao on, but then I saw that he was on the field, and I'm like, okay, I must have just missed him coming on. But really, he's got to start playing more. I know it's hard because Neto, there's a lot about his game that is useful for the team. He's got some more experience to him, so you expect him to be a bit more comfortable in there. But watching this kid play, I mean, he's so good. And he needs to get more time. He needs to get more experience, because the quicker he gets that experience and the quicker he has a chance to improve, the quicker we can see him become a truly world-class player. And I think getting him accustomed to the league as well, because it is a very physical league. And we've seen that he's willing to put his body in. He's willing to go into some rough challenges. But I think we saw with a player like Hazard, he knew how to use his smaller stature and use his lower center of gravity to turn players and get used to that strong physical challenge that a lot of Premier League teams are going to make. I think the more we see Estevao play, the more he's going to get used to those hard challenges coming in, how to ride them, how to use them and his low center of gravity to his advantage and be able to beat players that way. So I really do hope this is a game that lets Maresca see that he can play and he can be utilized more often. But all in all, I'm just really happy with the win. It's a much needed win. We've had a very rough run of matches since the Brentford match. I just hope that the fact that we're going into an international break doesn't dampen that for us, doesn't take away that feeling. So when we come back, it's all sort of gone. Because frankly, we did have a pretty easy run through this period. Outside of, I would say, Bayern and Liverpool, the rest of these teams were beatable. We could have beat Brentford, even at their place. We should have beat Brighton at home. We should have beat Man U. So most of these games were winnable, and the fact that we only came away with 3 wins out of this set, it's not good. So we really need to come back from the international break with a purpose and start putting together a streak of wins, because we need to push ourselves to get back up into the title race, hopefully. Because again, I want to see progress. I want to see that we're getting better. And so far, what I've seen is a regression from last season. So I hope that this is the moment where we can finally see that progression happen. But again, from what I saw from Maresca today, I can't say that I'm fully convinced that that will happen. But I hope he proves me wrong. We'll see. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on the game today? Let me know. We can talk about, discuss, all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea previews, reviews, and talks. And until next time, hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.